What if I told you the Garden of Eden was actually a hostage situation?
Oh, that is a wild way to put it, but yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
that the creator god you always thought was the hero of the story was actually the villain holding humanity captive. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
Our mission today is to explore this completely mind-bending ancient text from the Nag Hammadi library. It's called The Apocalypse of Adam, and the Los Angeles Times famously called this collection an absolute goldmine of the literature of Gnosticism.
It really is a goldmine, primarily because it completely shatters the foundational myths of Western civilization.
Literally shatters them.
Yeah. For some context, the Nag Hammadi Library was a collection of early Christian and Gnostic texts. They were buried in a sealed clay jar in the Egyptian desert.
Just hidden away in the sand.
Exactly. Likely hidden by monks around the 4th century when Orthodox authorities started purging non-standard beliefs. And the Apocalypse of Adam is one of the most fascinating documents they pulled out of that sand.
Because it's a very specific type of document, right?
Right. It functions as a secret traditio, which is like a hidden tradition or a lineage of knowledge. It's passed down directly from father to son.
Like a secret family heirloom?
Yeah. But in this case, it's passed from Adam to his son Seth in Adam's 700th year.
Wow. And since you, our listener, already know the traditional Genesis narrative, we aren't going to rehash Sunday school today. We are diving straight into the deep end.
Well, we really are, because this text doesn't just tweak the creation myth.
No, it turns it completely upside down.
Yeah.
We are talking about cosmic resistance movements, deeply insecure creator gods, and literal special ops rescue missions by angels.
Not to mention a savior figure who arrives with 13 wildly different, incredibly bizarre origin stories.
Yes. The radical departure starts right at the very beginning with the creation of the first human beings.
Right. In this alternate Genesis, Adam reveals to Seth that when he and Eve were first created out of the earth, they possessed an incredible glory.
Like a divine spark.
Exactly. A glory and a word of eternal knowledge. But the crucial detail, the hinge on which this entire theology turns, is Adam explicitly stating that he and Eve were actually higher and more powerful than the God who created them.
Wait, before we go further into this creator god, the source material constantly refers to this entity as the ruler of the eons.
Yes, that's a very specific term.
What exactly is an eon in this context? Because, I'm picturing a vast measurement of time, but it sounds like you're talking about living beings or physical realms.
That is a great distinction to make. In Gnostic cosmology, an eon isn't just a unit of time. It refers to an emanation of the divine.
Okay.
Think of it as a distinct layer of reality or a spiritual realm that is often personified as a cosmic being.
Oh, I see.
So when this creator god is called the ruler of the eons, it basically means he is the boss of these lower material and psychic dimensions. But he is emphatically not the ultimate supreme being of the universe.
He's just a lesser power.
Exactly. He's just a lesser power.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to make sense of this dynamic in a modern context, it's almost like a massive corporate takeover.
I love that analogy.
Right. Imagine finding out that the supposed CEO of your universe is actually just this deeply insecure middle manager.
Who is totally out of his depth.
Yes, he completely stole the company from you, the original visionary founders. And now, because he realizes you possess a higher knowledge and a glory that surpasses his own, he just reacts with intense jealousy.
Pure insecurity.
Totally. He strips your credentials, demotes you, and is desperately trying to keep you in the dark. Like you're working in the mailroom in fear just to protect his own fragile ego.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that corporate takeover analogy gets right to the heart of the core Gnostic concept of gnosis.
Gnosis meaning knowledge.
Right. Gnosis translates to knowledge, but it's not book smarts. It's an experiential, spiritual insight. And we really have to understand why this dynamic matters so deeply here.
Because it changes the whole meaning of the story.
Exactly. In this framework, the fall of humanity isn't about eating a forbidden apple or, committing a moral sin against a righteous authority.
Right.
The ultimate tragedy is the tragedy of forgetting. It's forgetting your own divine higher origin, losing your innate gnosis, and submitting to a lesser tyrannical authority.
It's so sad when you frame it like that.
It really is.
Yes.
The text says this insecure creator God divides Adam and Eve in wrath, leaving them to serve him in fear and slavery.
And there's this incredibly chilling line in the text where this creator God stands before them and demands, "Do you not know that I am the God who created you?"
Such a powerful moment.
It's pure gaslighting. He
Yeah.
desperately needs them to believe the lie of their own inferiority.
It is absolute gaslighting. The tragedy is actually believing the middle manager's lies about who you really are. And, psychological subjugation is exhausting.
It takes so much energy.
It does. You can almost see the parallels to modern burnout or imposter syndrome here. It's the profound exhaustion of operating in a system that is actively designed to make you forget your own inherent worth so it can extract your labor.
Wow. Yeah. But as human history continuously proves, an insecure tyrant doesn't just stop at enslaving people.
No, they always push it further.
Because if he even suspects that his subjects still possess a tiny spark of that original dangerous knowledge, his paranoia just takes over. He realizes he has to wipe the slate clean.
Total eradication.
Exactly. And that psychological panic leads us directly to the creator God's ultimate countermeasure, which is the flood.
Right. The text describes this almighty God pouring forth rain showers to destroy all flesh. It's an attempt at a total system reboot.
Just wipe out the hard drive.
Exactly. Noah is saved in the ark, and the text actually notes that later generations will call him Deucalion, which links it to the Greek flood myth.
Oh, that's a cool connection.
Yeah. And after the waters recede, the creator God tells Noah to rule the earth, divided among his sons, Ham, Japheth, and Shem, and he explicitly commands them to serve him in fear and slavery.
So he wants a compliant, docile, new humanity.
That's the goal.
But the reboot fails spectacularly. The text tells us that 400,000 men from the seed of Ham and Japheth simply defect.
They just walk away.
They completely refuse the program. They enter another land to sojourn with men who came forth from the great eternal knowledge. It's essentially this massive spiritual underground railroad operating right under the creator God's nose.
It really is an underground resistance.
Which brings up a massive logical question for me. I'm really struggling to understand the mechanics here.
Okay, lay it on me.
If this creator God, whose name is Sakla in this section, by the way, if he supposedly built the material universe, how does he keep getting outsmarted by his own creations? How are 400,000 people hiding from an omnipotent deity?
Because he isn't truly omnipotent. That's the secret. Yeah, his power is strictly limited to the material realm. The defectors enrage the established powers. The text actually describes how the dead eons go to Sakla and complain that these men are overturning his glory.
So the middle managers are paddling to the boss.
Exactly. So Sakla attacks them with the only tools he actually has: fire, sulfur, and asphalt.
Just brute force.
It's physical destruction. But Gnosis doesn't operate on a physical level. It operates on a frequency that the creator God literally cannot perceive or stop.
So physical barriers are completely useless against spiritual truth.
Exactly.
And that leads to this incredibly cinematic moment in the text. When Sakla starts throwing fire and brimstone, great clouds of light descend. What happens next?
Oh, it's so good. A literal special ops team of higher angels arrives to extract the defectors.
Like a cosmic rescue mission.
Totally. The text specifically names them Ebersax, Sablo, and Gamaliel. They descend right into the fire and wrath, bypass Sakla's physical barriers entirely, and rescue these men, taking them above the eons. The author is showing us that true, unassailable power belongs to those who maintain the imperishable seed of knowledge. You can burn their land, but you cannot destroy the truth they hold.
But this endless cycle of the creator God throwing a violent tantrum, followed by angels swooping in for rescue missions, it's not sustainable, right?
No, it's a holding pattern.
It requires a permanent solution to break the wheel.
Right. The narrative absolutely demands a definitive savior, a system breaker. And that brings us to the arrival of the Illuminator.
The Illuminator.
Yes. The text says that for the third time, an Illuminator of knowledge comes in great glory to redeem souls from death.
And this Illuminator performs signs and wonders specifically to scorn the powers of the creator God.
He's openly mocking the system.
Yeah. The authorities are terrified. They look at him and ask, what is the power of this man who is higher than we? And because they can't defeat his spirit, they resort to the tyrant's only playbook.
They punish his flesh.
Exactly. But right as the Illuminator arrives, the manuscript breaks into this wildly structured, poetic sequence. It's essentially a parade of origin stories from 13 different worldly kingdoms trying to explain where this guy came from.
The imagery here is some of the most vivid and bizarre in the entire Nag Hammadi library. I mean, every single one of these 13 kingdoms gets his origin completely wrong.
I know the text goes through a bunch of wild scenarios. What are some of the craziest ones these kingdoms come up with?
Oh, they are spectacularly strange. One kingdom claims he was born from a great prophet and nourished by a bird of heaven.
A bird of heaven.
Yeah. Another says he was a drop from heaven that was thrown into the sea and, birthed by the abyss.
Wow.
The fourth kingdom claims he was fetched by King Solomon's army of demons to impregnate a virgin on a desert border.
Wait, Solomon's demons? That is wildly specific.
Right? One insists he was brought down to caves by dragons. And the ninth kingdom even claims he was created when the 9 Greek muses separated and one became androgynous to give birth to him.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because when you look at all these wild stories side by side, it reads like ancient fake news.
That's a great way to describe it.
It's a cosmic game of telephone. It perfectly captures how human institutions always try to take something inexplicable, something that represents a transcendent truth, and they try to cram it into their own earthly mythologies.
They want to control the narrative.
Exactly. They use their local legends to try and domesticate a truth that is actually totally alien to them.
What's fascinating here is the underlying political and theological commentary. Scholars view this exact passage as a masterpiece of Gnostic syncretism.
Syncretism meaning blending different traditions.
Right. Syncretism is the blending of different religious or cultural beliefs. But the author isn't just blending them in a nice way. They're actively throwing shade at their rival religions.
Oh, I love some ancient shade.
It's so good. By putting Greek muses and Orthodox Jewish legends like Solomon's demons into the mouths of these foolish, mistaken kingdoms, the author is essentially telling the Greeks and the Orthodox authorities, hey, your ultimate magical figures are just confused bystanders in our true cosmic story.
That is brilliant ancient trash talk.
Isn't it?
The text is making a profound point about the danger of institutional dogma. It says these kingdoms boast in their transgressions. They are so confident in their flawed narratives, but they are completely blind to reality.
Because the text contrasts all 13 kingdoms with what it calls the generation without a king.
The generation without a king. Think about how radical that concept is in the hierarchical ancient world.
It's a kind of spiritual anarchism.
Absolutely. These are the Gnostics, the ones holding the inner knowledge. They don't need kings, dragons, or demons to explain the divine. They know the true origin.
Right, that God chose this illuminator from all eons to bring knowledge of the undefiled truth.
And the text describes this true knowledge as standing in the presence of God, like light that has come forth from fire and blood.
It is internal, direct, and it requires absolutely no earthly institution to validate it.
Which brings us to the massive scholarly puzzle at the center of this document.
The big mystery.
Yeah. When anyone with a Western background hears about an illuminator who comes to Earth, performs signs and wonders, terrifies the authorities, and then has his flesh punished to redeem souls, the immediate assumption is, okay, this is obviously Jesus Christ.
It feels like a one-to-one parallel. It really does.
Right.
However, translators and scholars like George W. McRae and Douglas M. Parrott point out a glaring anomaly. The most notable feature of this entire work is the profound absence of any explicit Christian borrowings.
Yes, the text completely lacks the traditional Christian format. There is absolutely no mention of a crucifixion.
None.
And perhaps even more shockingly, there is no mention of a resurrection.
That omission is monumental. It describes a charismatic figure who ran afoul of authorities and was punished, but the narrative just stops there.
He doesn't rise from the dead.
No, he doesn't rise from the dead in a bodily form. This absence has led scholars to hypothesize that the Apocalypse of Adam is an incredibly early transitional text.
How early are we talking?
We are potentially looking at a document from the 1st or 2nd century CE. This was a chaotic melting pot of an era, long before the New Testament was canonized. We are seeing the exact evolutionary moment when Jewish apocalyptic traditions were morphing into non-Christian Gnostic thought.
It's like finding a missing link in the evolutionary tree of religion. And you mentioned the text might not even be the work of a single author.
Right. Parrott notes that the tractate might be the result of a redactor.
Like an ancient editor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Someone who splices different source documents together to create a new theological narrative. The sames in the text really suggest we are looking at multiple ancient traditions woven into one.
And because there's no resurrection, the climax of the text goes in a completely different direction.
It does.
It culminates in a holy baptism of living water. The text introduces these angels who oversee this baptism, Mishu, Mishar, and Menesenes.
Right.
And they fiercely rebuke the powers of the world. They yell at those crying out with what they call lawless voices and souls full of blood. They're basically telling the corrupt authorities that their works are meaningless.
It's a powerful rejection of worldly authority.
It is. The true hidden knowledge of Adam is ultimately tied to these very specific holy names. Yesius, Mizarius, Yezedekias.
Secret words of power.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? We've gone through cosmic takeovers, defectors, special ops angels, and a mysterious illuminator. But if you are listening to this right now, why should you care about a theological debate over a nameless illuminator from a dusty manuscript found in the Egyptian desert?
It's a fair question.
How does this ancient cosmology actually map onto your life today?
Well, you should care because the underlying psychology of this text is stunningly relevant.
How so?
Strip away the ancient cosmology, the angels, and the eons, and what you have is a timeless warning against information overload and false authorities.
That feels very modern.
Right. Look around. We live in a world absolutely surrounded by our own 13 kingdoms.
Oh, yeah.
Whether that's modern media conglomerates, sprawling bureaucratic institutions, politicians, or, the algorithms dictating your social feeds, they are all desperately trying to tell you what the truth is.
And their version of the truth is usually designed to keep you serving their specific systems.
Exactly. They want you operating in fear and slavery, buying into the idea that they hold the answers and you don't.
So they stay in charge.
Precisely. This text challenges you to reject those external, often fabricated narratives. It demands that you find the wisdom of knowledge internally.
That is profound.
It is a reminder that the ultimate authority is not the loudest voice, the most ancient dragon, or the biggest institution. It is the quiet, imperishable truth that you carry within yourself. It's about recognizing when the systems around you are just insecure middle managers trying to diminish your inherent worth.
It's a radical manifesto for empowerment. True empowerment doesn't come from climbing the ladder of the creator God's corrupt world.
No, not at all.
It comes from stepping off the ladder entirely and remembering your own inherent value. Thank you for joining us on this intense journey through this alternate universe of Gnostic literature. It truly delivers on its promise of being a goldmine of insight.
It shifts your perspective on everything. And before we finish, I want to leave you with one final, deeply paradoxical thought drawn straight from the source material.
Okay, let's hear it.
After delivering all of these incredible sweeping visions, the text explicitly declares that the true words of the eternal God were not committed to the book, nor were they written.
That is an incredible bait and switch by the author.
It really is. Consider the ultimate irony here.
Right.
We have just spent this entire deep dive studying a physical written document, pulled from a clay jar in the Egyptian desert.
Right.
We've analyzed its words, its history, its redactions. Yet the text itself is looking right at you and saying that the most sacred, imperishable truth cannot actually be captured in writing.
It's wild.
The document points you toward the truth, but it isn't the truth itself. It's just a signpost. It invites you to ask yourself, if the highest truth can't be found in a book or an ancient scroll, or even in a deep dive discussion, where within yourself do you need to look to finally find it?